All right, what's up guys? Today we're gonna be checking out the brand new SLK Era Powers. But before we do that, you guys might notice what is behind me, and that is my newly finished home painted court, and I am so excited that this is finally done. This has been nearly a year in the making, and the paint officially dried today, and today was the first day that we got to try some paddles on it, which was the Era Powers. So super pumped about it, and I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who has watched and supported the content for the last 4 years, because it is absolutely insane to me that Pickleball Studio started in an apartment, in an office that was very tiny, not nearly big enough to actually do videos in. I actually still have these backdrops that I wanted to show you guys, but I had a bunch of these colored backdrops. You can see these are not very big. And if you go back and watch some of my older reviews, I used to film my paddle B-roll against one of these. So I would hold one of these or put it against a table and then put the paddle like this. And I don't know, it is insane to me to think that this started in an apartment and now I have a house with a court in the backyard. So all of that to say, I am extremely grateful for everyone who has watched this channel, everyone who has supported, watched, commented, everything. Seriously, thank you so much. And I'm pumped to make a bunch of content this summer. We are gonna make a lot of paddle content. It's gonna be great. Now, before we get into this review, you guys are gonna hear me reference a significant amount throughout this review that it plays very similar to an 11.624 Power Series, and that's because these paddles are almost identical. If you want a full breakdown, you can go check out John Q's video. He did an awesome breakdown kind of comparing the two paddles, but it definitely feels like there was some inspiration shared between the two paddles, and that's why they play so similar. I think ultimately which one you want to buy is only going to come down to a few really small things, which we'll discuss throughout the video. This paddle will also be $200, and if you use discount code INF-PB Studio, that will give you a digital gift card at checkout that you can use for future orders. And as always, if you want the specs, those will be on screen now. But the main things that you guys need to know is that starting with this SLK Era series, these are gonna be their new shapes moving forward and eventually develop into the main line. So they're gonna get rid of things like their S2, their Epic, their Invicta, and they're gonna be using these new elongated and wide body shapes. And honestly, I'm a big fan. So the wide body shape finally becomes modern. Selkirk has kind of always had these short handle wide body paddles that really just, in my opinion, weren't that great. I'm sure there are people that love them, but I much prefer this new wide body, and the elongated is also great, has a near 6-inch, very long handle, paddle feels great. So if you're looking forward to some of what's coming from Selkirk in the future, they are supposed to be using these two shapes moving forward to simplify their line. As far as swing weights go, they're actually very reasonable. So the elongated for mine was 116, and then the wide body was 108. So for both of those variants, there's plenty of room to customize them if that's something you want to do. I'm glad that Selkirk didn't go too crazy with the price. I still would have loved to see this paddle a little lower than 200, but if you compare it to the rest of their line, in my opinion, this is by far Selkirk's best power paddle, and at $200 it is cheaper than a lot of their other paddles, so they still kept it in a pretty reasonable price range for a brand that's known to usually sell more premium priced paddles. But anyways, let's talk about how this paddle plays. Like I was saying before, if you've already played with an 11.624 Power Series, you could probably just turn this video off, honestly, because the paddles are extremely similar, and even on the court they play very similar. The biggest thing that I would say I felt was different is that the Era felt more dense and a little bit more sturdy almost, where the 11.624 Power Series had a slightly more hollow feel in comparison, as well as just feeling a little bit looser overall. I wouldn't say that one was better over another. In fact, I think a lot of people could pick up either and say, oh, I prefer this one or I prefer that one. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the feel of those. I really think people could pick either and be completely fine, but I do think if you got to hit them side by side, people may have a small preference one way or another, and to me that's the biggest difference between these. Otherwise, this paddle has quite a bit of power. Pop is great at the net for counters. I will say that sometimes resetting a ball with how poppy it is does feel a little bit more difficult. I wouldn't put this as hard of a paddle to use as maybe the Pro 4 or the Ripple, but I also wouldn't call it an easy paddle if you are coming from more of a control paddle. But the nice thing about both the Era Power and the 11624 Power Series is that I think they're a great stepping ground into a power paddle without going completely overboard. I don't feel like you sacrifice all of your control, but I do think there's a little bit of an adjustment period. And just like the 11624 Power Series, the sweet spots on both of these are great. Even the elongated, honestly, a lot of the times these days when I pick up an elongated paddle, I immediately notice a drop in the sweet spot size and it kind of annoys me. But playing with the elongated Era, I had absolutely no issues. In fact, I'd probably place it as one of the better elongated sweet spots on the market, just like I would have with the 11624 Power Series. So both the wide body and elongated, as far as sweet spots go, I think they're top tier. As far as feel goes, I would place it on the slightly stiffer side of paddles. So if you are a player who prefers something that's a little bit softer, this might not quite be your paddle. As far as spin goes, just again, like the 11624 Power Series, which you're probably gonna hear me say about 1,000,000 times throughout this video, the spin was fine, but I wouldn't call it super standout. I would say it's exactly what you'd expect for a raw carbon fiber paddle in 2025. It's not in that elite tier, but it's also not awful. But yeah, playing on the court with these, I had an absolutely great time, but that's really not a surprise because I absolutely love the 11624 Power Series. So if you have something similar to that, yeah, it's likely gonna play great and have a fun time using it. Now, some of the smaller differences that I do wanna touch on is in the handle of the 11624 Power Series, they are using softer foam pallets, and on the Era, they're actually using harder firm pallets. So if you are someone who's really particular about your handle, you may prefer the handle on the Era. The only other really small thing I would say, and this is mostly a preference thing for myself, is the way that the top of the Era handle is on the top portion. It's just a little bit wider, so it feels a tiny bit clunkier, but the overall construction of the handle, I think, feels better than the 11624 Power Series. And then this is the difference that I think most people are gonna base their decision off of, and that's the 1-year warranty on the Era Power versus 6 months on the 11624 Power Series. So you basically have to weigh if saving $30 to $40 with the 11624 is worth having a 6-month shorter warranty. With Gen 3 style paddles, I do think that having that full year warranty to be able to replace your paddle would be great, especially with Selkirk, because they've pretty much been known to have the best customer service or replacement system in pickleball. So some of you might find that worth it, while others of you may just say, you know what, I'd rather save the money. 6 months is fine by me. I'll probably be on to the next thing. I'll just go ahead and buy that. So I think it really just depends on what type of person you are. Don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but some of you may find more or less value in that. But yeah, honestly, there's really not that much to say. I think if you want a whole picture of kind of how the Era is gonna play, you could pretty much just go watch my 11624 Power Series, because in terms of pop and power, I think they play extremely similarly. There's just that looser hollow feeling versus a more dense feeling on the Era. And if you're able to try both of them side by side, I would highly recommend it. But otherwise, if you're just like, I want a solid Gen 3 paddle that's not gonna give me a lot of fuss, then I think you could pick either of them up and be very happy. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.